3, 2, 1, on transmission.
Can we have the animation closed up tight, please?
15 seconds. It's a quick standby for you, Telecine, at the end of this one. 10 seconds. Coming to 1, 5.
Cut to 1. Cue Johnny. Animate.
They're away. Another programme is on the air. Before a film, as opposed to live television, can go on the air, there's much complicated work to be done. The film has to be edited to the right length, but in most cases, sound effects have to be added and music. The commentator has to add his words, and it's all done on this multi-track machine in the dubbing theatre. One spool may have music, another the speech, another the effects. They all have to be mixed together onto one track.
I think we just want some neutral exterior atmosphere on this, Peter.
Right.
A few cries.
It's in here that the finishing touches are put to the many films for Animal Magic, The World About Us, and for regional television programmes like Brown's Towns.
Finding new jobs for Bath's ratepayers is today as much the duty of the City Council as caring for the Royal Crescent. For the men who created Georgian Bath, life was a lot simpler.
That's how we see the film.
They could ignore the pressure for
This is how you see it.
Beginning to transform other towns and concentrate their energies on building a town dedicated not to work but to play. No portrait survives of the two architects, John Wood and his son, who did most to build it. But what they were obsessed with creating does. Classical proportions, modified by an Italian Palladio and applied
Just
by
one
the
of the
Woods
weekly
and
programmes
others
broadcast by regional television from Bristol. But the staff are always conscious of the nightly programme.
OK, cut it there. That's fine, Derek. That's what I want there.
Not a
Fine.
bad shot, there.
Good. Now, I want to go up to the Downs here and do some more shots there, OK? So I think I finished all I want to do here.
Just before we do that, I better check with Points West to see if I'm wanted.
OK, you do that.
I'll do it on the radio
yep.
phone now.
OK, and I'll get my car.
Silver Charlie 5 to help Bristol. Any messages for me, please? Over.
Silver Charlie 5 help Bristol. Message for you from Points West. We'll go to the gas explosion in the Union Street area. Over.
Roger to this, Bristol. We'll go immediately. Out.
Silver Charlie 5, listen out.
Sorry, Dennis, I've got a rush. Points West seem to have an urgent news story, a gas explosion. All right?
Points West cameramen are in constant radio contact with base, so that they may be sent to an urgent story. The sort of story that produces the same urgency in the newsroom of Radio Bristol.
Yes, OK. Yes, we will. Thanks very much indeed. Thank you. Right. Richard, I think you better take the radio car down to this explosion. Get down there as soon as you can. Ring in when you're down there. We'll listen out and talk back. Probably like a couple of inserts before lunchtime. I'll leave it entirely to you, but get down there as soon as you can in the radio car. OK?
While radio reporters and film cameramen rush to cover a gas explosion, in the Natural History Unit, they're looking at a sequence of one of their films, The Insect Man.
Come, monsieur. I will show you something more wonderful than the view from the top of Mont Ventoux.
I think this is going to be quite a wait, George.
Et voilà. Bring your camera here. We are indeed fortunate. That is Sphex albisectus. She has already been digging for some time. When the cell is ready, she will bring a locust paralyzed by her terrible sting and lay her egg upon it and seal them off together until the baby, the larva, has eaten the locust and is fully grown and ready to emerge. Just watch her. Such industry.
No, she's filling it in now. I didn't see any locust.
No, not yet. It's only a temporary cover to prevent unwelcome guests from entering while she's finding her prey.
And how long do you think she'll take finding it?
We cannot tell. Half an hour, an hour, 3 hours. Why, once, not far from here, I was watching Sphex in the early morning, and 3 women passed me on their way to pick the vines. In the evening, coming home, they passed me again. I was in the same position, sitting by the bank, watching. Mon Dieu, they said, what manner of a creature can this be? They made the sign of the cross. We must be patient.
And infinite patience is needed to film the life cycle of a hunting wasp. Specialist filmmakers concentrate solely on this type of work. Even so, Christopher Parsons needs other material.
Can we talk about Farber a minute? Sure. Gerald Thompson's got all the hunting wasp material I need, but I'm desperate for some pine processionary moth film. I seem to remember the French did something on this some time ago.
Yes, there's a French scientific documentary. I think Science and Features used it a couple of years ago. There'll be some colour master in London.
Oh, good.
But we have to get clearance through the French embassy.
Mike Kendall in the Natural History Library. If any special wildlife film exists anywhere in the world, he'll know about it, often from memory. The Natural History Unit is not only international in its work, it has international contacts, and the traffic is very much two-way. Indeed, the producers and cameramen of the unit are part of the international set, jetting to faraway places, some of them barren and bleak, others warm and welcoming. Ned Kelly films on Ascension Island, a far cry from his previous trip, that was on Mount Everest. Besides the pictures on film, the sounds are important too. The babble of the wide-awake terns will be an important adjunct to the final film, but these sounds too will be preserved, brought back to Bristol to add to the comprehensive wildlife sound library. But meanwhile, thousands of miles away, back at base, the convoy of heavy vehicles needed for television outside broadcasts takes to the road. They may have to operate where there's no electrical supply, so they take their own generators. They have a mobile television mast to transmit their pictures back into the network. Putting a show like this on the road needs careful planning beforehand and working closely with colleagues in London and other production centres throughout the country. Outside broadcast units, OB units we call them, may be needed for match of the day or a state occasion.
Gina, what's the OB unit doing on the 31st?
31st? I'm afraid they're in Hampshire with John Dobson.
The main vehicle of the OB unit is really a television control gallery on wheels.
Right, Alan, I'd like to record sequence 15 straight away, if I may.
Yes, okay.
Cameras, that's shot 57, sequence 15. Okay, Tony?
Yes, John.
Right, stand by VT. Come to 3 first. Run VT.
Everything in the BBC seems to have initials. BH for Broadcasting House, VT for videotape recording.
Stand by David Vine, and show him.
In this new series, we're going to do exactly what the title suggests, play tennis.
Programmes like this and others are discussed at the weekly management meeting of the Wise Owls of White Ladies Road, presided over by Stuart Whiten.
What about the concert from the Colston Hall on Friday night? Did anyone hear that?
Yes, I heard it. I thought it went well. I think it's rather a pity that there's these long breaks where they have to reorganise the whole platform. The same thing happened during...
Stuart Whiten is the man ultimately responsible for all the programmes produced for the networks from Bristol.
Poor old Brian Gear having to reel through page after page of his background material, which I thought he did very well. But it seems an awful pity from the listener's point of view that there is this sort of background noise of furniture removal.
What about the music, though? There was a specially composed work by Daniel Jones, who conducted it. What did you think of that?
Well, I think I only heard part of it because we were having our evening meal at the time and the rest of the family decided it was rather modern for them, so I think we took a short break of our own at that time.
Managers are entitled to time off as well. They're talking about a concert by the BBC Training Orchestra, 35 young musicians based in Bristol who give somewhere around 60 public or broadcast concerts a year. players who graduate to fill vacant chairs in the country's leading orchestras.
In Bristol for a start. They like working.
On his way to another meeting is John Craven, a meeting that's also concerned with young people in the programme Search.
I think it would be very helpful to everybody watching at home is that when you first speak, if you could explain easily.
Before each programme, the youngsters taking part get to know the compere, the producer and the others involved over a cuppa in the canteen.
Say where you come from.
Well, it is a bit, but I mean, if you're talking specifically about Liverpool, I mean, it's, and you don't come from Liverpool, it's worthwhile knowing that you don't.
The main thing is that you've all come from all over the country today to be on the programme, so for goodness sake, say something, because if you don't say anything and you go back on the train this evening, you're going to feel pretty fed up, aren't you?
I've got a problem as director. I don't always just want to take shots of the people who are actually speaking. And some of you just now, I was trying to take a shot of you looking interested, and you're looking up at the light, looking at the monitor, chewing your fingernails or whatever. Can you try and actually turn your head and look at who's speaking and actually listen to what they're saying? Because you may be able to come in with something really good, you know, and it looks very odd if you're looking incredibly bored. That's right.
This is one of the locations for the film made by the joint winner in our drama section, Michael Chappell, who's 12 and who comes from nearby Wolverton. Michael has called his film Hit and Run.
Would it be all right to talk to him now?
I think so. But just a few
The Search Film Competition each year attracts some remarkable films. There are always about 200 entries, and the winner gets a chance to direct a film using a professional BBC crew.
Can you remember anything about what happened?
And how did you feel when suddenly everybody arrived, all for you?
Well, first of all, very nervous, but later on it got all right.
Were you in control? Did you...
Yes, I think so.
How's that?
Yes.
All right?
Right.
No dialogue on this, is there, Mike?
No.
He just has his realisation that he's in hospital.
Check the focus then.
Comes in.
Oh, yeah. Not on this shot, though.
No, not on this.
This is just a pullback from his face with the utter realisation.
A young film director's dream come true in Search. And now we come to an interesting sequence. Some very distinguished people coming into the picture. On safari in wildest Somerset, the Living World team on a radio nature trail.
I think we could do quite a good piece on
that bit, can't we? Yeah, it'll suit us
think?
nicely,
Yeah.
I think.
Talk about the ivy climbing up the birch tree.
Incidentally, if we could mention the old controversy, which is still raging at the moment, about
Whether
it does any
kills or
damage.
doesn't.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. There
Um,
was a letter in the paper today about that.
was there? Topical.
There are always
Topical.
letters in the paper.
Right. Well, folks, some steps at the start. Who's going to be steps this time?
Shuffle the leaves, David. You always do.
With Dilys Breeze and myself, David Streeter and Boots. All the sounds in our radio nature trails are the actual sounds we hear and record out in the countryside. But in studio productions, for radio plays for instance, things aren't always what they seem. Producer Brian Miller lets another cat out of the broadcasting bag.
And it's a scene where you are painting, you see. You're painting the wall throughout the scene. It's a bit of distemper. Now, it'll sound really good. We have this brush with distemper and do little brushing motions like that while you speak. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Now, for you, I want you to be, as it were, doing something else. Yeah. So I want you to wander about a bit, you see, and kind of, as it were, fiddle about over here and pretend to... But you stay on mic throughout, brushing on this business. Yeah. And at the end, on speech, what it is, 453, 452, or 451, that's the one, Barnes. I want you to say, right, if you'll hang on a minute, I'll come with you. Put your script down, do your bit with our hands. Okay? Right.
I suppose you think I'm not in earnest about all this. Is that it? That I'm just playing about?
If you say so, mate, that's good enough for me.
I tell you, I'm going to find that girl. And I mean to marry her.
Oh, yeah?
What's so funny about getting married?
Well, it can be funny, all right, getting married to a